Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is what we're dealing with today. Can an individual make a statement, appear to waive their right to the Fifth Amendment, and then decide, no, I'm going to go ahead and plead the Fifth anyway? What does that mean to go ahead and say, I'm not going to speak based on self-incrimination? We lose track of how this really started. May the 10th of 2013, Lois Lerner had a question planted at the ABA conference so that she would be asked about something that was completely irrelevant to that day, and so she could leak out that day about this rogue group in Cincinnati and what was happening. 12 days later, she was in front of this committee. In front of this committee, she made this statement. Good morning. Members of the committee, my name is Lois Lerner. I'm the Director of Exempt Organizations at the Internal Revenue Service. I've been a government employee for 34 years. I initially practiced law at the Department of Justice. In fact, she was the staff attorney in the criminal division of the Department of Justice, and later at the Federal Election Commission. In fact, she was in the General Counsel's office at the Federal Election Commission. And then she goes on to make this long statement. In the course of this statement, she said this: I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations. I have not provided false information to this or other congressional committees. I know some people will assume I've done something wrong. I have not. I have responded to questions about the IRS processing of applications for tax exemption. All these statements that she made, in fact. And then there's this statement, but I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege so I don't have to answer questions related to these statements that I just made. Here's our big concern. You waive your right to Fifth Amendment when you make statements of fact about yourself. In this belief that she was not aware or didn't know, she'd practiced law for years. She'd been general counsel at the Federal Election Commission. She'd practiced law in the criminal division of the Department of Justice. This is not someone who was not aware of the law. This is someone who was very aware. We're asking a simple thing: answer questions. This entire investigation points back to one person beginning to answer questions. Why is this such a big deal? Well, somewhat it's a big deal because of the questions she was asking others to give. Now, I brought with me a copy of a letter that was sent by her office to one of the Oklahoma Tea Party groups. In this letter, she outlines at the beginning of it from their office that under penalty of perjury, everything has to be correct, and reminds the people that fill this out that everything you give me will be made public. So make sure what you give me, you're okay with being public, because I will release everything that you put in this document. And then this person who stands up and says, I don't have to answer questions, I don't have to make anything public, though I can make assertions that I've done nothing wrong, asked the individuals in Oklahoma that had simply applied for this application. They asked, give me a transcript of any speeches given by any candidate at any of your meetings. How about this? Do you directly or indirectly communicate with members of legislative bodies? If so, provide written communications and contents of any form of any other communication. This person that says, I do not have to say anything, required of them the contents of private conversations with any legislator that they might have come into contact with. They also asked, please state whether you provide any advocacy training for your members to the general public. If yes, describe in detail your advocacy training. Provide copies of any publications concerning your training. How about this one? Who selects the material on your website? Name them. And how do they set criteria for that? Describe in detail your advocacy training. Provide copies of anything related to your training. Provide copies of all your corporate minutes from its inception to the present. Provide copies of your website, the areas that only members can access. This is private information that they're requiring of private citizens. They're requiring, if you're going to come through our office, we're going to make public every conversation you've had with any legislator you've ever communicated with. Write us in detail the nature of that communication. Yet this person says, I can require someone else to do those things, but you can't require me to speak even after I've made a statement that I've done nothing wrong, I've violated no rules, I've told this committee the truth every time. I can make those statements, but I don't have to back it up. You do have to back it up. You cannot step into this committee, make an assertion of fact, waive your Fifth Amendment right, and say I won't answer questions, while at the same time requiring organizations for years, some of them, like this one, still waiting for their tax-exempt status, and say they have to do it, but I don't. We're Americans. We're all treated the same. This is not treating someone different. This is treating everyone the same. So it's time we get some answers. With that, I yield back.